What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this, I want to talk about something very important involving trading. I want to make a very, very simple video today, not really focus too much on charting, just talk about what I would do if I were to restart my trading account and talk about some very, very interesting strategies. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And then don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. You deposit $100, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks, and the offer ends in just about 2 days from now. Anyways, when it comes to the markets, I just want to make it very clear that the market is wild. Some days the market's running like crazy. One day the market's dipping, the next day it's pumping, and sometimes it can be very difficult to predict every single move. So, you know, something that's been happening to even people that I know and a lot of my own friends is that a lot of them end up blowing their portfolios. And, I just want to say that, I've experienced the same thing. It's very, very difficult sometimes when trying to trade. And there are a lot of different strategies that you could incorporate that could decrease the odds of that happening. So, how would you go about trading if you were to restart? What if I were to lose all my money? What would I do? So, I'm not going to do anything too fancy, give you guys any like fancy visuals or anything like that. I'm just going to talk to using my microphone and just try to be as fast as possible in doing this. I think that you'll find a lot of value in listening to what I have to say because I feel like a lot of these issues that I'm going to list could actually relate to a lot of people. So, when I was trading many, many years ago, there were many times when I would trade and I'd have very, very consistent wins. I'd win again and again and again. And then what would happen is I would make, 30, 40, $50,000, and then I would end up blowing, almost all the money. And I'm sure you guys know what that feels like. Especially when you think, the market's going to fall, the market's going to dump, and you keep shorting the market endlessly only to lose up all your money. So, one thing that I was doing wrong was I was playing positions that were very, very short term as possible, just to make as much money as possible. So, for example, if if it was like Thursday, I would play like the end of the week options on SPY, hoping that I would make crazy money. That's the first mistake that you can make because you have to remember that there's a data decay for options, and that could really hurt you. That's why a lot of people like to transition to futures, but I wouldn't necessarily get into futures too quickly. I would actually give it a lot of time because futures, you'd want a lot. You'd want to have a portfolio that has like a decent amount of capital to do so. In my personal opinion, excuse me. Um, Another option is just getting funded, but I would recommend having a lot of experience first, being used to the way the market moves, and trying to be consistent first before trying to do anything like that. And I think that the way to become consistent is going to require discipline because it doesn't matter if you're doing futures or if you're playing options, if you're doing any of this. What matters more is developing skills uh, from being more disciplined to being able to manage risks. Developing those skills is more important in the very beginning, and I would say that that's what I would focus on if I were to restart. So let's just say I blew all my money. I go completely broke, and I want to get back into trading again because I know that I know people who are extremely successful doing this, and I know that I could achieve it too, right? I know I can. I know you guys could, right? How would I do this? The first thing you want to do is take baby steps. So I would save, let's just say I only have, $1,000, $2,000 saved up. So you want to save up around that much or so. You have $1,000 saved up and you're willing to risk it, use it for trading. So in your new portfolio, if you want to start off with options, because I know the majority of retail that talk to me typically trade options, you could start off with options. Okay. And when you're trading options, here are a couple of things to remember. There's a trick known as the zero data expirations. They try to base retail, everyday traders like you and me, to getting into zero data expirations so you can make a quick buck really, really fast. And sometimes it can work really well, but I would recommend being very careful with those because the data decay is insane. You don't want to be holding those for too long. So if you were to trade those, I mean, I know people who, it worked out really well for them, and I'm in no position to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. If you want to trade them, you want to get in and get out kind of quickly. That's like one of the best strategies, and be very careful with those because if in one day your entire options value will go to zero if you mess up. If the stock is just like a penny away from your strike price, like, for example. So be careful with zero data expiration options. If I had a $1,000 portfolio, I would try not to risk more than 20 to 30% per day of it. So I would use like a maximum of like 2 or 300 at the most per day with my trades. And I would only do maybe like 2 or 3 trades per day, maybe less than that. I would just focus on very, very few trades in the very beginning. All right. At most two or three. Now, how would I go about those two or three trades? Well, what I would do is I would make sure I only use like, you could use it really depends on your strike. Look for options that look lucrative and may only cost as little as between $1 and $2 each. So that's basically $100 to $200 overall. That you know how the contract prices are different. I was kind of referring to that. So manage risks very, very well. That's the most important thing. And then you want to play a game where you're trying to make your losses very, very small and your wins very, very big. So let's just say, I'm trading for 1 week. My profit is like $300, right? My whole portfolio is now 1,300. That's awesome. My wins would have beaten my losses. But you want to kind of look at it not just from 1 week, because being consistent over 1 week is not as difficult as some people may make it think. Being consistent over a couple of months is what's a lot more difficult, because the market could be all over the place. Maybe your strategies could work during a sideways market when the market's very choppy, and maybe they won't work as well when the market is making big drops, or maybe vice versa. So manage risks, take small trades in the beginning, and don't focus on the dollar amount as much. Focus on trying to be consistent, and that's the main key. Keeping those losses small, utilizing stop losses, not risking too much, and being able to know that maybe you should just exit the trade just to be safe. Sometimes I've been in positions where I just exited the trade, even if, even if I feel like I messed up on my stop loss. Even if I entered the trade too quickly and I end up losing kind of fast before I even set my stop, sometimes that's happened to me too. Sometimes the market moves so fast, you won't even be able to set a stop on time. So you just have to exit the order as fast as you could. But basically, you want to experiment with that, and you want to be making basically win two times more than what you lose. So if you look back at your trades and you made $500, the most you want to lose is 250 or less than that. You want to consistently do that, and you want to do that for at least 2 to 3 months, in my personal opinion, maybe even longer, 4+ months. Okay. So, excuse me, that's how I would basically go about it, keeping everything very simple. You want to have a journal what goes right, what goes wrong, and then learn from your mistakes. Be very, very patient. One strategy that's worked very well for me is I personally don't swing as much when it comes to trading. Sometimes I do swing trade, but I do tend to just get in and get out, scalp a lot more on a daily basis. So I find that to be my forte. I find that to work a lot better for me. Maybe for you, you're better at swing trading. You could try to prioritize that, but keep the discipline the same. That's the most important thing you want to be focusing on, because once you get the discipline down, once you know that if you make $1,000 in a single day, you're not going to try to just chase for that every single day. Instead, you're just going to try to be consistent with what's more reasonable depending on how much money you have. You're going to focus more on that. So as you start to become more consistent, and that's something that's very difficult, right? You want to be looking at different time frames. Personally, when you're trying to like scalp and such, I love to use the 5 minute time frame. I have different indicators that I typically use for these. You could use different EMAs and such, whatever you guys want to use that you've known has potential to work. There's a lot of strategies on YouTube you could use, so I don't want to just put everything in your mouth. You could actually find your own strategies, whether you're trying to use like death crosses, golden crosses, and such. So you've got a golden cross right here, which showed more upside, and a bunch of different strategies could work. Right, your direction could also be found using bigger time frames. uh, Using the 30 minutes for direction is also very, very useful, but there are all sorts of different things you guys could use. I want to kind of like avoid telling you just solely what I do and kind of let you have the freedom to just experiment. And that's the thing about day trading. My strategies may not work as well for everyone because we all have different mindsets. We have different opinions and different ways that we play the markets. Some people I know are very, very good at like playing the counter rally. When they see SPY pumping very, very hard, they start shorting it and they catch the drops like this, for example. That's one example, and different people have different strategies. So what I would say is you want to be like a scientist. Okay, you want to experiment, calculate how many times has this worked for me, how many times has my strategy failed, and you want to be able to adjust to different markets. That's the most important thing about trading, and that's what makes it so difficult, how much the market environment changes, and you have to be very, very lucrative, very, very adaptive to all these different changes. So Once again, if you're restarting, manage risks very, very well. Okay. Have your risk management ready, have rules set beforehand, for example. So let's just say I have a $2,000 portfolio. I set rules that I'm never going to try to risk more than like $400 in total with all my trades. For example, that's one example. So I can only make like, three, 100 and I don't know, just for example, I can only make only three like $130 trades per day, for example, or only two $200 trades per day. That's an example, right? So if you have such few trade options, then you can't be just throwing the money in for no reason. You have to be very careful with your entries. Always remember that. So with that being said, I would basically just focus on risk management and discipline. Always remember that. That is the most important way to succeed at this game. And then you have to remember that to become a millionaire trying to day trade, it's not going to happen overnight. Okay. So don't chase that overnight if you have a small portfolio. Focus on small wins, small wins, small wins. Small wins will add up. They're going to add up quickly, but you have to give it time. And then what's tricky about trading is how like, you can make crazy money and then you're going to get all excited and that might affect your disciplinary practices. You have to remember that. So, with that being said, guys, the number one thing I would do if I were to restart is just focus on developing disciplinary practices and don't focus too much on the dollar amounts. Just focus on percentages and see did I win or did I lose more than I lost? Did I lose more than I won, and etc. So, this, like what I say, sometimes could be a little broad because I can't give you all the specific information. I can't tell you like risk this much, this much. You can have a different perspective. Maybe you want to risk a little bit more. Maybe you want to be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe you want to make bigger trades and you just want to make one big trade a day. You could have a different strategy. But as long as you maintain the structure where you manage your risk, you could still succeed. And that's the beautiful thing about trading. There's not one way to trade. There are different strategies that could work. But always remember discipline and managing risks. Once you become consistent, 3 months go by, you've been making, big wins and small losses, then you could start shifting things. You could start scaling upwards. You can actually start, trading with more money, start putting in more money. But remember one important thing. Just because you could trade well with a one excuse me, a $2,000 portfolio, it doesn't mean you're just going to trade so well with a $20,000 portfolio, because the psychological effect of trading with more money is very different compared to trading with less money, right? If you're using uh, $200 for a trade, that has a very different effect as using $10,000 for a trade, right? There's a very, very different effect, and that's going to affect you mentally. So always remember that the more you scale, the more it's going to affect you. So don't scale too fast. Don't just go from trading with, 10% of your portfolio being $200 to suddenly using 20% of your portfolio, which becomes, $10,000, for example, after you start growing and such. So you have to remember that portfolios can go really, really fast. You can make a lot of money quickly, but the way to do it is incremental values, small wins again and again consistently over a couple of weeks, over a month, could grow like crazy. But you have to remember to be disciplined no matter what. Okay. So if I were to restart my trading journey, I would step back, look at what I did wrong, look at new strategies, and experiment and manage risks. That way I could just, continue to do it for quite some time. And I'll see what works, see how things go, and just work as hard as I can to be as consistent as possible and discipline myself. That is the key to success in this game. And then once I figure out that, hey, I have a strategy that's working, you guys could have different strategies from me. It's okay. Once you figure out something that works, then you start scaling slowly. Don't scale too fast and be careful with the way you scale, but it could be achievable. And then slowly, you get used to, $200 trades, $300 trades, $1,000 trades, $10,000 trades, and before you know it, you will reach a point where you start making, for the most part, more consistent, like $1,000 days, $200,000 days, crazy numbers like that. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like it's straight out of a dream, but I've seen it before, and that's the crazy thing about this game. You have to be very, very open minded, and you have to know that the sky is the limit. You could keep going, you could scale this like crazy, and you could make life changing wealth, but it's not easy. It is not easy by any means, and I'm sure you guys have seen how difficult trading can be. And always remember, one more thing I would say is that we don't always know what the market's going to do. No matter how good our technicals are, sometimes the market could do completely unthinkable things. That's why you always have to have a plan B. That's why I always go over the bullish and bearish cases so you always know what could end up happening when you least expect it. And generally, what we predict on this channel is correct for the most part, but not always. Sometimes I'm wrong. And that's why you always have to be prepared for the trade to fail. And that's the most important thing. And I would say that for any trade you make, always be ready for the trade to fail just in case something goes wrong. Anyways, that's enough about me just ranting on about trading. For tomorrow, I'm going to make a more in-depth video about all the different stocks like Nvidia, AMD, Tesla, SPY, the QQQ, and the others. Like I typically do. The market's going to be closed for tomorrow, which is going to be Memorial Day. So I hope you guys have a very, very awesome weekend. And with that being said, I hope this video, brought some value into your guys' lives. Please have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow for another update before we start to see the market open again on Tuesday. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and peace out.